Okay, I was thinking for a little while about seeing if I could improve these Yamaha speakers, those are the black ones, by seeing if I could change the drivers, either the woofer or tweeter in them, and seeing if it would sound any different. And I had these paradigm woofers from a center channel speaker that I plan to just drop in there and test, but I had an even better idea. I decided, what if I could make these speakers sound better without changing any of the drivers? And this is actually easier than it sounds. So, first I want to show you how these sound. I'm not sure how to describe it. Kind of sounds trapped inside the speaker, a bit of a gap between the really high treble and some of the mid-range. And it just kind of sounds harsh. Let's listen again. And now the bass might sound fine at first listen too, but this recording's actually quite bass heavy. And it's a bit bloated sounding in the mid-bass region on these speakers, and it doesn't really go very low. Now, just a little bit of a comparison. I've got these old Sonys from 1973, which have a capacitor that has worn out and gone off spec. They actually sound different in between the boxes, and yeah, they still manage to sound better, and I think the bass might be better on those too, and that is actually because of a design flaw in the Yamahas, is the reason why the bass is not very good on those. These Sonys already don't have the best bass, just to put it in perspective. So, let's see what we can do about upgrading these speakers without replacing the drivers. This is going to be an interesting one. Okay, so these speakers are the Yamaha NS AP2800 BLF front surround speakers, and the F stands for front. The rest of that model number is actually the model number of an entire surround sound system. I think I already undid this screw slightly, I just noticed, but that shouldn't affect anything. And that's actually what we're going to be doing. We're going to remove the woofer first. That'll give us an access to some of the inner electronics. These wires are quite thin, but that shouldn't really matter for the sound, despite what many of the myths want you to believe. A lot of the audiophiles want you to believe that you have to have really thick wire to get good sound. That is not really all that true. And you might have noticed right away that the tweeter is just your normal average Mylar. They call it balanced dome, but it's more like a cone tweeter, is what I like to call these. It's kind of a plastic cone. They're just basically the same speaker that you might find in like a toy or a headphone. They just have thicker cones, and they don't have any openings in the back, so they work as tweeters. It's not actually the tweeter that's causing that horrible sound. In fact, it's a part down here. This is the capacitor. It blocks the bass from the tweeter, and it's not a very good capacitor. It's not the right rating. They have put in a capacitor there that blocks too much of the bass in there, so only the highest of high notes comes from this. Now, I'm going to see if I can drop in a crossover, which is both a capacitor and an inductor for the woofer to filter out the treble from the woofer, from a better speaker of mine, just for this test that I'm doing. And that's going to be the first thing that we are going to improve about this. This is what I'm putting in there. See how much more this is? This is what should really be in a speaker. Now, you see, this came from a speaker that I use a lot, so I'm not gonna keep it in there, but this is the one that I'm gonna be using today. Now, it's still quite a simple crossover, but it should be a large upgrade. Now, another thing that I'm going to do is, and this might sound a bit funny, but this speaker, these two bass ports, now the one thing that I don't like about it is that there are two, and they're quite short, which tunes the speaker too high, which means this isn't really going to play that low, and it's going to have a little bit of a boomy sound in the terms that of what a lot of people call it. And to fix that, we just have to seal them off. And I have sealed one of them off, and it improves the sound. And I've sealed both of them off, and I think it might have even improved it a little bit more. So let's try to do that as well. And I've also got this polyfill batting from the speaker that I got the crossover out of. And I think that might also help with the sound. And I'm going to try to make it look just like the original product from the outside. So let's see what we can do. Okay, so I've done the initial sound test, and I think all that this speaker there needs now is a resistor on the tweeter to kind of quiet it down, because it's a bit loud. This is a 6 ohm resistor, and it's 10 watts, which should be fine once it's past the capacitor. Okay, so we're doing our first audio test, which is what you heard earlier, kind of that slower kind of sound. And this is the original, that one there. Now let's hear this one. One thing that I noticed at first is on the original speaker, it's got some parts of the treble that are way too loud and other parts that aren't quite loud enough. And when I put the correct crossover on the speaker on the right, I got all the treble too loud. So I think the tweeter was too loud already in the speaker even before I did the upgrade, which would explain why it had that harsh kind of artificial sound to it. And putting a resistor on it really helped. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of a different sound test. One other thing that you might have also noticed is although the bass was quieter on the speaker that I changed the inside of, it had a tighter sound to it that sounded more like the actual instrument. And the reason behind that is, one, there's a low pass on the woofer. That means the woofer isn't getting any treble, which would kind of affect the sound. And it also, I also put tape on the back of those ports. At low volume, that's not going to really do anything like rattle with the tape on there or anything. And I actually haven't had that problem anytime I've taped a bass port, even though it kind of seems a little bit of a quick fix kind of thing, which I agree it is, but that sealed the box. You can see the woofer comes out more slowly, and that kind of tightened up the sound too. Now I'm going to do a little bit more of an upbeat kind of test. Maybe upbeat wasn't the right word, but kind of an electronic hip-hop type kind of beat. Let's hear how the original sounds first. and let's hear how the modified one sounds. Well, you could definitely hear the improvement in clarity in that test. The next thing I'm going to do is kind of make it so it's just the bass and drum instruments and turn the bass up so you can kind of hear how that's changed. I'm going to use this part. Okay, so not only did that sound boomy and bloated, but it also distorted a bit because the ports are letting too much air through. They're too short. Now, let's hear what this one sounds like. Might need to improve that tape a little bit. But you can hear it definitely sounds tighter, but the tape was actually vibrating. That's how much air was trying to push through those ports. Of course, this is quite a high excursion that is high movement driver in quite a small box, so that would make sense. But that is what kind of improvements you can make to a speaker that seems like it has somewhat good parts, but doesn't sound very good. Low pass on the woofer, which means that speakers that do it the same way, so it's probably not the bad part. That actually did what I wanted it to do, unplugging it. About improving these Yamaha speakers by installing new drivers. What was that? So upon editing this footage, I realized the thing that had fell behind these speakers was a charger that I had been trying to find for a few days now for this speaker. And now there are more speakers here, so I'm gonna have to take every single one of these out and get that charger.